My guest today for Voices of the Valley is Bill Street, President and CEO of Zoo Knoxville. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, absolutely. No problem.
So we actually met one time, and I wish I could remember where I encountered you. It's when you first got hired on at Zoo Knoxville. And we just had such a fascinating talk. I had such a wonderful time just learning about your background. So when I see somebody like you and I see the job that you do, the first thing I think is, oh, he must have loved dinosaurs growing up, and then it evolved into animals. What is your origin story for loving zoos and conservation?
Well, I'm a little bit older than you are, and so when I grew up, I grew up in the kind of cornfields of Illinois, very rural northern Illinois. And so when you got up in the morning, you got on your bike and you took off and you went into the woods and you played all day and you had all your friends and you built forts and you found things and you explored. And then when the streetlights came on, you knew it was time to be home. And so in my lifestyle growing up, it was primarily all the time was outside. And I just started falling in love with nature and wildlife. We had a small little place up on a lake in Wisconsin, so I was fishing all the time, and just, that's how, we didn't have these video games like they have today and other types of things of entertainment, so you entertained yourself out in the wild. And so that's where I got my kind of ethic of love for nature. And then when I was 12 years old, I have an older brother, and he was a scuba diver, and he needed a scuba diving buddy. And so you had to be 12 years old in order to get scuba certified. And then that was back in the day of like Jacques Cousteau and the really old equipment. And so I got certified at 12. I was one of the youngest divers ever certified in Illinois at the time. Very cold water in Illinois, by the way. So it was but I loved it. So I would go diving with my brother and learn to love everything that was underwater. And then I just kind of continued to progress. So when I went to college, I got a biology degree, and I had my first internship at the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago, and I absolutely fell in love with it, and I made a career out of it.
Did you have a favorite animal growing up?
Many. Obviously, we had pets growing up. Everybody's going to think this is weird. I'm very much an aquatic person, and one of my favorite animals was a thing called a northern pike. It's a fish, and they are this long, almost kind of like barracuda-like fish. They're mean as all get out, very big predator, and they're kind of stealthy. They just sit around and wait for something to go by, and then they're very fast and grab it. Mm-hmm. And so as a fisherman, I was one of my favorite fish to catch because they were just ornery. And also, I just loved it because they get huge. They get as big as this table. And I would go scuba diving, and I would just sit there and watch them just kind of lurk around, and I thought they were the coolest. It always seemed like they were playing chess, and all the other fish were playing checkers, and so I was just like, that's very cool.
So when you were in college, were you like, I one day would like to lead a zoo, or did you have some dreams before that? How did you start?
Well, when you grow up in the Midwest, I mean, that you don't think that that's going to be a career option at all. And so I got a biology degree and an undergraduate degree in biology. There's a lot of pathways, but not always a lot of jobs. And so and this was before the internet, and so I started writing to places.
He's not like 85. I don't know why he keeps positioning it this way.
But it was definitely not at a time where we had cell phones and things. And so when you were looking for jobs and careers, you were looking in newspapers and you were writing to places, a much more traditional way. And so I wrote to a whole bunch of places, and I received a note back from SeaWorld in Orlando that they would love to have an unpaid intern come down and work summer camp. And so my dad gave me his truck, and I packed everything up. I'd barely been out of the Midwest, and I drove all the way down to Florida and found a rent-by-the-week place in Orlando. Maybe it wasn't the greatest community that was there, but it was fun. And I just started working at SeaWorld in their education department. And I was in the right place at the right time. We had a really great director of the department who still to this day is a great friend and colleague. A lot of my very good friends today were in the room my very first day at the job there. My wife was in the room. And I just started falling in love with developing education programs and working with kids and introducing them to animals and getting involved in some of the husbandry and care for species. And it was just like that. I was like, this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life.
What were some of the early lessons? Because I think we have a vision of what career will look like when we're in
Yeah.
college. And then when you go into the real world, you see that there are some differences, some similarities,
Sure.
but some differences. What did you learn when you first took that job?
Yeah, I was very young, and so I think part of it, for me, I was coming out of first learning to be an adult, living on your own. Those are a lot of life lessons there, but also the ability to connect people with wildlife and then transfer their passion and love into behavior. So how can you take somebody that loves an animal or wants to do something about an animal and then kind of convince them, here's the types of things that you can do in your everyday life that are going to help that species. And I love that, seeing the light bulb go off in kids where they just are amazed. I'll give you a story of something that happened to me here at Zoo Knoxville my first week. Came out of my office and I'm walking around trying to get a lay of the land of the zoo because I'm still learning. And it was a colder day, and it wasn't the world's greatest weather. So we had just a few people in the zoo first thing in the morning. And there was a young mom that was there, and we have an otter exhibit when you first come into the zoo.
Love the otter exhibit. I know
Greatest
exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, and she had two boys there, and the boys were literally playing tag with the otters. The otters will chase people and play tag with them, and it's a very special moment. You're making this incredible memory. And I looked at the mom, and she was videotaping, but I saw that she had a tear going down her cheek. And I mean, it's a very special moment. That's one of those awesome parent moments that you have. But it was, I thought it was kind of unique, and I kind of walked over to her and I said, "Yeah, that's really cool, isn't it?" And she looks at me and she looked at my name tag and she's like, "Oh, you don't understand." She goes, "My son right there." He's on the spectrum and he is afraid of being in the public and around people. And so we don't really leave the house. And this morning he got up and he said he wanted to go to the zoo. And he is here now and he is running amongst people, chasing this otter around, laughing and playing. She's like, all of those anxieties that he has, he doesn't have right now. And it's a very special moment when that happens. And she was reacting to the fact that he could have cared less he was around people, and he was just having the greatest experience, really becoming friends with this otter. And so that's the kind of power institutions like ours have. And that's just a very special moment.
To think you all are probably a part of so many people's core memories.
Right.
When I was 10, when I was 15, when I was 7, and I went to the zoo, this happened.
When I came here and interviewed about 18 months ago, I'd visited the Knoxville Zoo before, but I hadn't spent a lot of time here in East Tennessee. And so I drove down from Indianapolis, and I was at the hotel the day before the interview, and I went down to Jig and Reel because I heard they had the best fish and chips. And so I went down there, and I was sitting there and getting dinner, and there's a bunch of people there, and I just started asking them, what's Knoxville like? And I said, have you ever been to the zoo? And every time I brought up the zoo, people got this huge smile on their face, like, oh my gosh, I used to go there all the time as a kid, or I was just there last week, and their core memories of growing up here in Knoxville and East Tennessee almost always center around the animals at the zoo or an experience they had at the zoo or the school field trip that they went on. And so our institution is beloved in this community, and it's a huge responsibility. I mean, I have almost every day somebody, when I tell them the president and CEO of the zoo, they will pull up a picture of them with the elephants back in the day, or here's me getting a chance to interact with one of the rhinos, or here's me on the carousel. So it's a great responsibility knowing that we are core memories for people growing up here in the community.
Now, how did you get here? Because you were in Indianapolis or Indiana.
Yeah.
What kind of sealed the deal for you to say, okay, this is an opportunity I want to jump on?
Well, I was, I've been in the zoo field for coming up on 40 years now.
Okay.
And quite frankly, I had an opportunity to go in a lot of different places with the experience and where I had been in the past. I fell in love with Knoxville. This is the coolest community. My wife and I were just talking about this last night. We have met more people in the year and a half we've been here in Knoxville than the 5 years we were in Indianapolis. We loved Indianapolis, but we love it here. We are 20 minutes from hikes in the mountains, 20 minutes from walking around Norris Lake. The theater scene, the arts community, and then there's this thing in Indiana we call it Hoosier hospitality. I call it Knoxville nice. Everybody here is so friendly. So it's been a great pleasure and privilege to be able to come in this community and meet so many people that are philanthropic for our zoo, are supporters of what we do, love what happens. It was very evident here in my first visits that this is, I call downtown Mayberry because it reminds. I totally understand. You get it? It's like they kept all the storefronts looking like they were back in the day. There's just this incredible vibe about this city that we have immediately fell in love with it. And so it was a very easy decision to be able to come here. Plus, our zoo, Zoo Knoxville, is a really incredible zoo. It's growing. We're the biggest cultural institution here in the city, one of the most visited attractions in the state. Like I said, we're beloved. There's so much opportunity here as East Tennessee and Knoxville grows. It was just, why wouldn't you want to be here? It's amazing.
Okay. I think you sold it for me. I got to stay here forever. I got to stay here forever.
Well, you're going to.
So you get here in 2024. I don't know why I said that. So pulled out 2024. Yeah. What were some of the things where you said, you know what, I see where I can put my stamp on this?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that I did I was becoming a part of the Knoxville community and becoming a part of the zoo's culture. So a lot of leaders will come in and they'll just start making a bunch of changes. I've learned a long time ago that there will be a time to accelerate and make some changes and put your fingerprints on things, but first learn about the culture of the institution. So I took the first 6 months and I met with every staff person individually to learn about what they loved about the zoo, what they'd love to see improved. I met with every community leader that would meet with me, all of our board members, everything else. And in that first 6 months, I got a really good idea of what kind of a place Zoo Knoxville was and our role in the community. And then also East Knoxville is certainly under the microscope. We are a growing community. There's a lot of interest in the development that's going to happen in East Knoxville and especially Chilhowie Park. And so my plans have really been, how do I accelerate and help advance what the plans already were for those communities. And so we are getting ready to, this past year, we put over $10 million in capital projects opened up in the zoo, which is a huge amount of resources to put in there. We brought a lot of new animals here. I don't know if last time you were at the zoo, but
I stay at the zoo. Let's see if I know the new one. Let me hear it.
Well, so since just in the last 18 months since I arrived, we redid our gift shop, which is great. We brought 4 young juvenile rambunctious rhinos to the zoo. They are like little teenage football players. They are awesome. We built this incredible exhibit for them. First 2 weeks, they just busted everything because that's what rhinos do. That's exactly what we wanted them to do. That's great. But they're very energetic and constantly running around and just amazing. We brought ostrich to the zoo.
I haven't seen the ostrich.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, no, I have not.
They have, you have beautiful eyelashes. Their eyelashes are amazing. Yes. And they're flirts. And so they will just follow people up and down the pathway and just kind of look at you. And they are adorable. I will admit that there's not a lot upstairs in an ostrich in terms of what they're thinking, but our guests can feed them, and it's just a really cool experience.
They're vibes only. That's what we always say. They're just there for the vibes.
They're so hilarious. And so that's been a great addition. We have, we've always been known for red pandas. We had 2 baby red pandas last year born, which was exciting. And in fact, just a few weeks ago, we have a red panda arrived from another zoo, and it was born with a defect, and it has 3 legs. And it, as you were asking me about my favorite animal, right now, she's my favorite animal. She is so cool, very curious. In the morning before the zoo's open, I'll walk out there and she will come running over and just like trying to get as close as possible. She's incredible. We had baby red wolves born last year, and then one of our newest additions, it's been 10 years, but we had a baby gorilla born this past winter, a little boy, and that's incredibly exciting. So the zoo's animals are thriving, and we're growing, and we have a lot of things here soon to announce in terms of some of the growth that we're going to do throughout the rest of the zoo.
Am I allowed to ask, like, what's not your favorite, like your least favorite animal
No.
to care for?
No,
There's got to be one where you're like, here you go with this one again.
No, they all have their unique qualities. I will tell you that I really appreciate them now, but it took me a long time to get comfortable with macaws. Because for some reason for me, I see them like they break a nut with their beak, and I just feel like, oh, that scares me a little bit. They're amazing. We have incredible animals.
Birds.
I know, and you said
love all
you're a
the
huge
birds.
birder,
Yes.
and I've seen them in the wild, and they're amazing. But it took me a little while to gain as much appreciation for them as I have today. But I love everything. I mean, it's so wonderful to be able to, and there's so many lessons you can learn from them. So it's great to be able to see the diversity of animals we have at the zoo. And then I'm very fortunate that I get to travel quite a bit. And so I'm able to see them and their counterparts in the wild. So I have been to almost every single continent. I've seen things that are way beyond anything I've ever thought I'd get a chance to do. So I get this great comparison of animals in our care, and then in many cases their wild counterparts and the conservation that goes with them.
I was going to say, with that exposure and going to so many different continents and countries, does it change your perspective on conservation and what you're doing locally?
Always, yeah. And I think that one of the challenges we always face is many of us watch documentaries and we love animals and things, but when you can go out into the wild and see an animal that is struggling to survive and the threats that it faces, sometimes human created, sometimes not, and then the complexity of what has to happen for them to be able to recover. One of the animals I worked with in kind of previous careers was this little porpoise called the vaquita. You might have never even heard of it.
Never.
It is found in the very northern part of the Sea of Cortez in Baja California, Mexico, about a half-day drive outside of San Diego. And it's only found in this little lagoon. There are probably less than 12 of them left. I mean, they are a critically endangered porpoise. In our lifetime, they are almost likely to go extinct. And so you go into that community, and as a conservationist or a person, you should say, oh, they should just do whatever they can to protect the species. That's a community that does a lot of fishing. 80% of their economy is based on fishing, and they want to save the porpoise, but also their entire San Felipe, the entire community is based upon the use of the ocean and providing seafood, and so. Conservation is never a simple equation. It's so complex, and it has so many tendrils, and often is very difficult. So when you go out and you meet the people that are impacted by the conservation of the species and the balances that they have between feeding their families or being able to fish in areas where this vaquita is, it makes it very humane, and it makes you have to really think about how strategies can be put in place that benefit both humans and the species that they live with.
How do you get the community to care and really invest in zoo and conservation when there are so many other distractions in life that are so important? How do you get them to kind of lock in and pull in?
Right. Well, I think that's one of the big roles of zoos and aquariums and botanical gardens and so forth. Is every year we have 600,000 people that come to our zoo, and they light up and have those experiences. So that is the first hook to get them involved. And then once they're involved, it's about helping them to understand the things that they can do in their everyday lives that can help provide safety for those animals. So sometimes it's as simple as, putting bird feeders and thinking about what you plant in your backyard for native wildlife. We focus a lot on what's happening here in the Smokies. And so what can you do to help protect animals, both in providing them resources and space and the kind of flora and fauna that they live in, but also doing things that prevent them from getting into trouble. You always hear about the bears.
Right.
Making sure that you're putting your trash in receptacles that aren't attracting bears, and doing things to provide a little bit of a buffer between their lifestyles and our lifestyle. So those are the things we can do in our everyday lives. And then I know you're a big birder. Then it's also getting out there and seeing things, because when you're out in the wild and in nature, you learn, you see things that are happening, you see changes that happen in environments, and you become passionate about that. So when you talk to a lot of the people that support many of the nonprofits that protect the Smokies, almost all of them will say, I learned to do this because I spent my childhood hiking
That's right.
up there, and I gained my conservation ethic, and now I want to be able to help protect those organizations that are protecting this very important natural resource.
You talked about your time in leadership and in this industry. Talk a little bit about your leadership style and figuring out what works for you and what connects with the people that you manage.
Yeah, that's changed over the years. I mean, I think that I always joke that when you're in a career and you're growing up in the career, you always want more responsibility. You want to be the top person. And then when you're there, you work really hard to go the other direction and get less responsibility. And I don't.
They all depending on me.
Yeah. So we practice mentor leadership. I'm a part of Leadership Knoxville right now. It's an incredible program. That's a big basis of it. But at my point in my career, one of the things that we have to do is not, I have to make decisions every day, but I want to make decisions, and the people that work with me and around me are understanding why we make the decisions that we do. We have a very clear common goal, but there's a lot of ways to get to that goal. And so what we try to do is provide autonomy to our team to be able to make wise decisions, to make educated decisions, and then also to have an environment where, as long as the animal's safety is not at risk, or human safety is not at risk, or you're not going to do something that shuts down the zoo today, an environment where it's okay to make mistakes every once in a while, because that's how you learn. And so, and in fact, that's how we innovate. So the very biggest innovations that have happened in any industry, but certainly the zoo industry, is because somebody made a mistake. And they're like, oh, wow, we could do it this way. So we try to create an environment where our team has autonomy. They have incredible care for the animals. What they know about the animals is amazing. They can intuitively pick up things way before anybody else, because they're spending so many hours with the animals under their care. And so giving them an environment, then also really being, I'm an educator by trade, so really teaching people about things, because eventually one of them are going to be in my role.
Right.
And I want them to make their own decisions at the time, but also have really understood how you make really good decisions that benefit the zoo and the animals and the people we provide that experience for.
What's a good day at work for you?
Every day.
Oh,
I mean, even the hardest days, at the end of the day, I mean, I have a really cool job. And I work with some passionate people and incredible people. I can't think of doing anything else. My wife used to tease me. She's like, you could go do other types of things. I'm like, no, I could not. This is what I was born to do. So I'm privileged to be in the role that I'm in. I love it every day. And even the most challenging days, when I go home at the end of the day, I'm like, that was a tough day, but boy, that was way better than any other person I can think of. We had recently, we opened this new Timber Loop experience, which is this pathway that had the Smoky Night Lights, this brand new light show.
yes, I haven't seen that yet.
Well, so we are so proud of it. Okay. Our team poured their heart and soul into this. It's an amazing show. Okay. And then we had a windstorm right before Christmas, and a tree came down and smashed a huge section of it, and it was a freakish thing. And there's a scene in, I don't know if you ever saw the Tom Hanks movie Money Pit, but there's a scene where he's in his old house, and he's restoring it, and he has a tub that falls through 3 stories, and he's looking over the hole that's just created, and he starts hysterically laughing because he's just losing his mind.
Yeah.
That was me that morning. I was like, oh my gosh. multi-million dollar thing we just put in here, and this tree just smashed it to the smithereens. We're going to reopen it probably here in February. We're on the way. But even that day where I was like just crushed for our team that worked so hard and just all of us, and it was right before Christmas, and all these people had gotten tickets to come see for their families, and we had to shut it down. Even that day, I went back and I wrote a note to the team the next morning. And I said, okay, it's happened. Let's fix it. Let's go. And so, and they've responded. So we likely will have it open here in February, reopen in February. And even those really tough days are incredible.
What's your favorite zoo in the world? Outside of the one you're managing now.
Thank you, because it was immediately
I know you're going to say
Knoxville.
Zoo Knoxville. What's your favorite zoo in the world?
That's a tough one because there are several that are really outstanding. So I'm going to give you a few different ones. I've always been a huge fan of Monterey Bay Aquarium out in California because that was an old cannery and fishery. So an institution, the building that used to go out and use the resources of the ocean. And then Julie Packard came in and created an aquarium inside this fishery and to celebrate ocean life. And they have a massive research program now, and it's probably considered one of the best aquariums in the world. I just think that's an amazing story because it came from a place that utilized the ocean resources to one that now celebrates it.
I've been to it.
Oh,
It's
you have?
wonderful.
It's
It is
amazing.
wonderful. Yes.
Amazing. So I think that's an amazing, really amazing facility. There is a really incredible exhibit in Leipzig, Germany, at the Leipzig Zoo called Gondwanaland. I think it's probably the best zoo exhibit I've ever seen. It is a massive rainforest dome that is, it takes like 2.5, 3 hours just to go through that exhibit. And it's got a restaurant, and it's got a kind of a gondola water ride, and it's got tapirs in it and sloth, and it's just amazing. And in Leipzig, they have cold weather a lot, and so this is a place where the whole community can come together, and it's just one exhibit in their overall zoo. So if you ever get to Leipzig, Germany, you got to see that. Okay. And then I'll admit, usually my favorite zoo is the one I just visited. And so just a couple months ago, I was. And it's not quite a zoo, but I was just asked to come out and see a facility in India. And it's a facility called Vantara. And one of the wealthiest men in Southeast Asia basically created a rescue center for wildlife. And he has created this sanctuary for animals that is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's unbelievable, amazing. And it's not a zoo because he doesn't let anybody come see it. It's completely private.
It's just conservation. That's
yeah,
it.
It's just conservation. I think there's a TV show coming out about it relatively soon. But
Wow.
To me, that is some of the things he's done there will likely revolutionize how we think about zoos in the future. And it's also enormous. It's probably one of the biggest places I've ever been to. So that was exciting because I just saw how he had done some things differently, and that innovation is always exciting to me. So I don't have a single zoo that is my favorite, but I always take little pieces and parts from many that are all around the world.
If money was no object, what would you love to see at Zoo Knoxville?
Wow.
It's just a blank check for the nonprofit. Here you go.
Wow.
When I win Powerball, the big ones.
So, believe it or not, it may not be an animal exhibit.
Okay.
What I would love to be able to do is to, a big part of our mission is the conservation of species. And so what I'd love to be able to do is to bring a center for species survival here that is driving the conservation and protection of species worldwide, both here locally and nationally, but also internationally. So the ability for, teams of people that are making assessments for species, where if they're critically endangered, where they are at, and for the ones that are most endangered and critically endangered, working with scientists and conservationists and professors all around the world to put the plans together to help those species to recover. And then once those plans are in place, then going out and implementing those plans. We work, and we're a member of IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. It's the world's largest conservation network. And we're a member of it now. And so that's kind of their process, where they go out and they're the ones that identify what's endangered and critically endangered. And then they put plans into place to help bring those species back and then implement those plans. And it sounds really simple. It's much more complex than that, but I would love for us to be one of the biggest players in being able to help do that. So we're a few years away from that now, but already our conservation strategies are going to start lining up with that ability to do that.
I hope the check comes through for you.
I hope so too.
Thank
I
you
hope so too.
Bill, you're wonderful. You
you.
lived up to everything I thought you'd be. I
you.
love your passion for animals and for conservation and for right here in East Tennessee, marrying those two. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.